Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Enter the Abyss. Thanks for joining us again.
Yep. So tonight is going to be a special episode. It's going to be our first part 2 episode.
Our first part 2 episode. Now, that's not trippy. I don't know what is. But you can't talk about number 2 without a good old beer. We got Test Phase IPA from Uinta Brewing Company. How is it? You took a first sip.
It's pretty good.
All right. Pretty good in Cleat standards is all right. His ranking system is all over the place, so
I give it a 7 out of 10.
I bought this beer simply because I think the can looks really cool.
Yeah.
It's like a nuclear reactor with an explosion, like a hops explosion going on next to it.
Just so you guys know, this episode is going to be a second part of a series of The Exorcist Cursed. In our previous episode, we kind of just went over the synopsis of The Exorcist. We went into the origins of what could have caused the curse, and we went over demonic possession, as Britton covered separate stories of that going on.
Right.
So in this episode, we're going to be covering more of like the Exorcist curse during production of the film and post-production, as well as we're going to go over demonic possession that did not go well for people trying to become, unpossessed.
Right. So other real-life Exorcist stories that we didn't get to last time. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to wrap this one up. But we do want to give a shout out because we actually got another really awesome comment on our YouTube series from a listener named Jessica, and she says, "I fucking love you guys. Greetings from Germany."
Yeah, I'm so glad you read that because I'm religious and I can't say that word.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're taking the what do you say?
The heaven road.
Yeah, you're taking the heavenly road, the high road. No F-bombs for Cleat.
I'm a changed man.
But Jessica, thank you so much for the support and greetings from Utah. It's a long ways from Germany, last I checked.
Guten Tag.
Right. All right, so before we jump into the Exorcist curse, I know everyone's dying to hear what actually took place, but let's talk about a couple more real-life stories of real-life exorcisms here. So this one actually took place in 1974. An Englishman, Michael Taylor, a husband and father of 5, met 21-year-old Pastor Marie Robinson. His frequent bouts of depression seemed to ease. Remember last episode we talked about 15 signs, I think.
A precursor of being possessed.
Right, like typical signs. And one thing we kept pointing out was a lot of it can also be described with mental illness. So, there's that line of, are you possessed or are you just mentally ill? Like, where's the line that you cross? But this depression falls right in line with that. So in part, Taylor believed it was due to Robinson's ability to exorcise demons plaguing him. After his wife confronted Taylor about a possible affair with Robinson, he physically attacked her. This led to an actual exorcism by 2 ministers that took place on October 5th, 1974. Remember, a strong, sudden sexual attraction is also a sign of demonic possession.
So he's saying, it's not my fault I was possessed?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't cheat on you. I was possessed. The demon made me do it. Michael also reported having seizures. He would spit and bite the exorcists and scream in tongues, which is another extreme sign of possession. The next day, he would brutally murder his wife. He was not convicted, however, because of the defense's argument that the exorcism had made him insane. You believe it?
Did he go to like a mental institution?
I don't know. It just literally says that he wasn't convicted. I think that he just kind of got off.
Well, hopefully he went to like an insane asylum. I hear those places are actually worse than prison.
Yeah. But this also reminds me, because I actually watched the new Conjuring movie. Have you seen that one yet?
Yeah, we actually did an episode on that very tale.
What did you think about it?
The first part kind of was funny.
Funny?
With the kid. It was just kind of over the top. I didn't like it at all. It was just like super unrealistic. It was okay.
The first one was my favorite.
Yeah,
Can't
same.
beat the first Conjuring. The second one, this was the least of my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. I like the Conjuring films. But I also watched Quiet Place 2, and that was phenomenal.
Ooh, I'll have to see that.
It was insane. It was better than the first, and I love the first one. But anyway, it just reminded me of the Conjuring there with the because he wasn't convicted and because of the defense saying he was possessed. So this next one actually inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. That was my favorite exorcism movie I've ever watched. Did you see that one?
Yes, I don't remember it though.
It's been a while since it's been out, but it was actually one of my favorite ones. So this next one was 1976 from Annalise Michel. So just like the last one we talked about, this story also ends in murder. Like I said, we're not going to be talking about the happy exorcisms this time. It's all the ones that didn't end so well. It was Annalise who was murdered, so the one who was actually being exorcised upon. The German woman's demonic possession was actually an undiagnosed brain disorder, possibly epilepsy or schizophrenia, or perhaps both. But being a religious young woman, Anneliese welcomed exorcism to cure her. There were 67 attempts, each unsuccessful. The 23-year-old succumbed to starvation. 2 of her priests were convicted of homicide.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't the priest go to jail at the end?
Yeah. I mean, 67 attempts and no one's feeding her.
The power of Christ really compelled her.
Compelled her appetite. This happened the year before I was born, back in 1990. The Exorcism of Gina. So in 1990, Reverend James LeBar oversaw 3 different exorcisms, all sanctioned by the Archbishop of New York, Cardinal John O'Connor, and the Vatican. See, when the Vatican gets involved, you know something's really going on.
Yeah.
One of them, the exorcism of a Florida teenager named Gina, was televised by ABC Network in 1991. I need to watch that. Newsweek would describe the ceremony, which was accompanied by medieval-style music, as, I quote, little more than gratuitous torment of a deeply disturbed young girl.
That is so sad.
I don't know if I want to watch it anymore after that description. I was like, that might be kind of cool. She was strapped to a chair in which she screamed and barked unintelligibly while the Reverend pressed a cross into her face and told her supposed demons that if they wanted pain, he'd give it to them. So he's like assaulting her with this cross. Like, you want pain, motherfucker? You want some pain?
It's like a WWE exorcism.
Right? Puts him in a half Nelson, stuffs the cross in her mouth. Meaning, of course, the helpless Gina. Ultimately, it was antipsychotic drugs that gave Gina relief, not the exorcism itself. I can believe that one. I'm actually personally itching to jump into this exorcist curse, so let's go ahead and jump your way.
All right, fun fact. McCambridge provided the dubbed voice of Pazuzu, the demon possessing the young girl Reagan, played by Linda Blair, in The Exorcist. To sound as disturbing as possible, McCambridge insisted on swallowing raw eggs, chain smoking, and drinking whiskey to make her voice sound harsh and her performance aggressive.
That's going the distance. Raw eggs, completely chain smoking, and drinking a bunch of whiskey, huh?
Yeah, for my research, they wanted to make Pazuzu gender neutral, so they picked a woman, but they wanted like a really harsh, gritty voice, and that's how she did it. Apparently, she was like a recovering alcoholic, so that did not help her.
Oh no!
Yeah,
it's like, hey, I know you're just recovering from alcoholism. Here, have a couple shots of whiskey, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes, and we blended some raw eggs for you. It's gonna make you sound tough.
I guess maybe we'll try this on the podcast, see how our voices change.
We're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. Nice try.
I got a dozen of eggs for you.
I just walk in and you're like, hey, I've got a cup of eggs. Here's a pack of cigarettes, and we got some whiskey.
Yeah, room's full of smoke.
I'm not falling for this, Cleet.
So, interesting fact, in Japanese culture, they consider the number 9 unlucky, as it sounds close to the word suffering. That's why you'll never see prices ending in Japan with 99.
That's crazy because 9 is legit my lucky number. It has been my entire life.
Maybe you just like to suffer. I don't know.
I mean, sure.
So
this means I can't go to Japan.
So a staggering 9 deaths were connected to the 1973 film The Exorcist, which follows the demonic possession of a 12-year-old girl and her mother's attempt to save her with the aid of the 2 priests. You want more info on that? Watch our previous episode.
So 9 deaths came about this?
Yeah.
Real life deaths.
Yeah, some people count more, some people count less, but
But we're going to stick with 9 because it closely resembles suffering.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
For 4 decades, the film has been deemed cursed by horror fans after eerie things went wrong right from the start of the production, created by Warner Brothers and Hoya Productions. The filming of The Exorcist was done over a 9-month period. The main set, a reproduction of a Georgetown home, was built in a warehouse in New York. During the filming, a number of curious incidents and accidents took place on the set and plagued those involved with the production. In addition, the budget of the film rose from $5 million to more than twice that amount to cover for these issues that were going on. Obviously, any film's production that lasts for more than a month or so will see its share of incidents and mishaps, but The Exorcist seems to have been particularly affected by unforeseeable calamities. Coincidence? Perhaps.
I don't think so.
But it left the cast and crew shaken.
So, but remember, I think not the whole cast and crew went to Iraq, though, right? It was just the priest and then obviously the filming crew.
So the people being filmed in Iraq were there.
Right, but you don't have the actress that played Reagan. You don't have anyone else. So now that they're filming,
Reagan was there, but yeah.
Yeah, so like they're just now suffering from the evil that they brought home with them
from Iraq, Pazuzu.
From all these devil worshippers, and
it was the spirit of Pazuzu.
That's it.
The first incident occurred around 2:30 a.m. Already spooky time, close to the witching hour. It was one Sunday morning when a fire broke out on the set. There was only one security guard at the Kiko 54th Street studios when the McNeil House set caught fire and burned. The fire was a result of a bird flying into the circuit box, and it shut down filming for 6 weeks while the set was constructed again from scratch.
Was it a vulture?
Not just a pigeon, New York.
It would have been sick if it was a vulture, because they were trying to get all the vultures on the Pazuzu statue.
Yeah. The weird thing about this is the whole set burnt down except for the room where all the exorcism was taking place.
Holy hell.
Isn't that weird? If that's not an omen, suspicious. I don't know what is. Ironically, as soon as the new set was ready, the sprinkler system broke down, causing an additional 2-week delay. A few of the actors in the film escaped personal troubles during the shoot. Just as Max von Sydow, Father Marin, touched down in New York to film his first scenes, his brother died unexpectedly in Sweden.
Oh, no.
Von Sydow himself later became very ill during the filming. Irish actor Jack McGowan died only a week after his character was killed by the demon in the movie. Jason Miller, Father Karras, was stunned when his young son, Jordan, was struck down on an empty beach by a motorcyclist who appeared out of nowhere. The boy almost died.
Wow. All right. So that's a lot of shit that just you
tragedy.
Don't see.
Yeah. Ellen Burstyn, playing Chris McNeil, wrenched her back badly during one scene when she was slapped by the possessed girl. The stunt went badly awry, and she was laid up in bed for several weeks afterward, causing more delays in the filming.
So she just straight up smacked her too hard and it put her in bed?
Yeah, apparently she's had back problems ever since.
Can you imagine being the actress and like, hey, you're just going to smack her and you almost paralyze the woman?
Yeah, that's crazy to me. It's like you ruined your life.
You don't go back from that.
Well, you were like 12.
Like, you told me to do it. Yeah, but not that hard. You paralyzed a woman with a smack.
In New York, one of the carpenters accidentally cut off his thumb on the set, and one of the lighting technicians lost a toe. The location trip to Iraq was delayed from the spring, which was relatively cool, to July, the hottest part of the summer, which we covered in the previous episode. But the temperatures there rose up to 130 degrees or higher, so they were limited on like when they could do filming.
Yeah, that's way too hot.
Out of the 18-man crew that was sent there, Friedkin lost the services of 9 of them at one time or another due to dysentery or sunstroke.
So half the crew at some point was just gone.
Yeah, dude, if it's 130 degrees and you're out there in tents in the middle of nowhere, like, makes sense.
If they're carrying all this crazy camera equipment and no thanks.
And to make matters worse, as we mentioned in the previous episode as well, the bronze statue of Pazuzu, the winged demon, somehow wound up in Australia, which caused another 2-week delay.
Yeah, because customs was so put off by this thing. They're like, no, I don't want to deal with it.
I don't know if it was a jinx really, actress Ellen Burstyn later said, but there were some really strange going-ons during the making of this film. We were dealing with some really heavy material, and you don't fool around with that kind of material without it manifesting in some way. There were many deaths on the film. Linda's grandfather died, the assistant cameraman's wife had a baby that died, the man who refrigerated the set died, the janitor who took care of the building was shot and killed. I think overall there were 9 deaths during the course of the film, which is an incredible amount. It was scary.
Good God.
Right? There's just a list of people, dying right and left. I don't know.
Like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Things got so bad that William Friedkin took some drastic measures. Father Thomas Birmingham, S.J., from the Jesuit community at Fordham University, had been hired as a technical advisor for the film, along with Father John Nicola, who, while not being Jesuit, had been taught by Jesuit theologians at St. Mary of the Lake Seminary in Mundelein, Illinois.
I feel like you have to, like, at this point in time with how much shit is happening on the set, get a real priest. Like, actually have someone there. Because, like the actress is saying, like, you're dealing with really heavy stuff. You're talking about actual possession and demons, and you have a fake statue of Pazuzu. Like, you're really inviting a lot of this shit onto the set. Maybe get a little bit of help.
Can you drink holy water?
Right, I mean, you can drink anything you want. Just the question is, what happens? I feel enlightened.
Friedkin came to Birmingham and asked him to exorcise the set. The priest was unable to perform an actual exorcism, but he did give a solemn blessing in a ceremony that was attended by everyone then on the set, from Max von Sydow to the technicians and grips. Nothing else happened on the set after the blessing, Birmingham stated, but around that time, there was a fire in the Jesuit residence set in Georgetown. And while nothing else tragic occurred on the set, strange events and odd coincidences were reported during the post-production work on the film. There were strange images and visions that showed up on the film that were never planned, Friedkin later claimed. There are double exposures in the little girl's face at the end of one reel that are unbelievable.
I think that would be so cool to keep in the film.
I was looking, they didn't know it was there.
Oh, okay, so after the film was made, they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking for pictures on Google, but I was unable to find them.
I thought you said, like, during the production they found him and they had to take him out. The fact that they're in there is really cool.
Yeah. The film opened on December 26, 1973 to massive crowds. Within weeks of the first public screening of the film, stories started to make the rounds that audience members were fainting and vomiting in the theaters. There were also reports of disturbing nightmares, and reportedly, a number of theater ushers had to be placed under doctors' care or quit their jobs after experiencing successive showings of the movie. In numerous cities that were checked after The Exorcist had run for several weeks, reporters found that every major hospital had been forced to deal with patients who reported, after seeing the film, severe cases of vomiting and hallucinations. So we might have our own Exorcist curse, because I swear I saved my original script, but when I pulled it up today, it was just gone off my computer. So I had to rewrite it really quick, and I couldn't find the story that I had on my original script. I remember the brief excerpts of it, but I think it was in Rome in Rome, when the film first came to theaters, there was a movie theater like in between two churches, and there was like this 400-year-old cross, and I guess it got struck by lightning, and it fell onto the ground, like during the first Exorcist screening.
God damn.
Yeah.
Well, and if you remember, we cut this out of our last episode during the editing process, but while we were covering part one, there was a moment when Cleet's computer just shut off. Like, everything went black right in the middle of talking about something. And then all of a sudden there was like a bunch of flies that just came in here, and Cleet's like killing them all. Like these little fruit flies. Like out of nowhere, everything's fine. And then we're starting to talk about this stuff, and his computer shuts off, these bugs come in, and then now his script goes away. So we're going to be part of this fucking curse. But the reason I wanted to chime in here as well is there was a movie my brother and I went to. I cannot for the life of me remember what the movie was. But I was still too young to drive, so my dad dropped us off at the theater. And it was a horror film. I think it was about aliens or something. And there was a woman 3 rows down below us, and like we're in the middle of the movie, she just starts screaming, like hysterically screaming, and she starts shaking in her chair. And the partner next to her is like, oh, no, call 911. So, like, she completely loses her mind and is screaming. So me and my brother have to leave the theater, and they're like, here's a free ticket to come back. And we were like, what the hell happened?
I don't know, man. It's weird.
So, anyway, it just reminded me of you talking about, people in theaters experiencing weird things. But, this curse might be real because we're experiencing it right now.
Let's transition to some more demonic stories.
So, this one took place in 2003. And this involves an autistic 8-year-old boy named Terrence Cottrell. Unfortunately, he was killed during a prayer that was intended, and I quote, to drive out the evil spirits that had caused his condition. So an autistic boy, and they're saying that he's autistic because of demonic possession, and he died because of it. The official cause of death is mechanical asphyxia due to external chest compression, reported CNN. Meaning Terrence was suffocated. The reverend named Ray Hemphill, who had performed the exorcism, had reportedly sat on the boy's chest until he stopped breathing. The reverend was convicted of homicide shortly after.
Sad.
You see all these stories, like we've read a couple of them, where these really unfortunate causes happen because someone says you're possessed when you're not. Like the girl who refused her dad's sexual advances, and she had an exorcism because she said no, and now this boy died because he was autistic and they thought it was a possession that caused it. Like, what the hell? A couple years later, 2005, from Marisica Irina Cornici, hopefully I pronounced that right, 23-year-old Romanian nun Marisica was 23 when she began to hear voices inside of her head. She thought at first that it was the devil talking to her. Although she was treated for schizophrenia, she would relapse and then subject to an exorcism. Bound to a cross, gagged with a towel, and left in a dank convent room for 3 days without food and water, she died of suffocation and dehydration. I wasn't kidding when I said that some of these stories were going to be people that didn't make it out alive. Like the first ones we talked about, like they were fine. They were exorcised. Things went normal. These ones, I mean, but they're all being dehydrated and starved. Like, do you believe in any of that? Like that they were truly possessed? Like, do you believe in possession in the first place? I don't think I asked you that.
I have no idea.
That's fair. I don't either.
I
really don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, it's your personal. There's no right answer to this. Okay, so this one actually took place only 11 years ago, 2010. Christy Bamu. Oh, man. So this took place on Christmas Day, 2010. 15-year-old boy, Christy Bamu, was beaten and drowned in a bathtub in London by his sister and her friend in an attempt to exorcise evil spirits from the boy.
What?
Good God, like his own sister did it? Originally from the Republic of Congo, the pair tortured the boy with knives, sticks, metal bars, a hammer, and a chisel until he quote-unquote begged to die. Holy hell.
Maybe they had the demons in them.
Yeah, I think they were the ones that were possessed. The pair were convicted of the boy's murder. Yeah, obviously. Now, these are tough. All right, so the last story I have here took place 2015, the exorcism of Lara. In Argentina, church officials filmed the exorcism of a 22-year-old woman named Lara by Bishop Manuel Acuna. Lara writhes, bangs her head, and screams profanities. Supposedly, the exorcism ends well, and the evil spirits leave Lara, and the bishop makes a sign of the cross over her.
Oh, so that's a happy ending?
That's it, I guess, yeah. I thought we were going to get a little bit more context, but apparently it was fine. But I don't know, like these filmed exorcisms I would like to watch, but they sound pretty intense. Like especially the first one we talked about where it's just like this beating of a poor woman. Like I don't care to see that. It's not my cup of tea. But those are the true exorcism stories that we're going to talk about. I think I want to cover, because there's a couple really big exorcism stories later on that I would like to cover that go into a lot more detail than we could fit into just a normal episode while we're talking about the Exorcist curse. But let's jump back into that.
So another interesting fact about The Exorcist was there was apparently a serial killer working on the set named Paul Bateson.
What? Like on the actual set of the film?
Yeah. Paul Bateson was a radiology technician both in the film and in real life. However, it's hard to find the words he speaks to Linda Blair's Reagan comforting after learning he killed at least one man. On September 14th, 1977, Bateson stabbed reporter Addison Verrill to death in his Greenwich Village apartment.
Jesus.
Later, Bateson anonymously called the police and told them his version of the murder. However, according to Esquire, while on the phone, Bateson unwittingly let clues to his identity slip, and he was caught after a second caller named the killer as Paul Bateson.
Smooth.
Right?
He's like, no, let me tell you my accounts. And he just leaves little breadcrumbs. They're like, whoa, well, you're busted now, sir.
And that's when I said to myself, Cleet, not today. Stab, stab.
So I hid the murder knife in my closet. Haha, just kidding. Don't look in my closet.
After Bateson was taken into custody and subsequently convicted, he was linked to the murders of 6 other men. Following Bateson's trial, an acquaintance claimed that Bateson told him he liked to kill and that he had dismembered the bodies of an unspecified number of victims.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He stuffed them into garbage bags and dumped them into the Hudson River.
Who is this, Dexter Morgan?
Right. Despite this testimony, no physical evidence was ever found, and Bateson has always proclaimed his innocence.
I don't know if this would ever actually happen, but can you imagine if you're just like one day you're like, you know what? I'm going to pretend that I'm a serial killer and I'm going to like brag about all the killings I've done. You're like, yeah, I chopped a bunch of teenagers up and buried them in the woods, and they found a bunch of chopped up bodies in the woods. And you go to jail for an actual serial killer?
That would be so bad.
Like, what would happen? Like, how do you, like, can you imagine? I don't know why that just popped into my head just now, but you pretend to be a serial killer and you actually go to jail for an actual serial killer?
It happened 40 years ago. What are you, some type of time traveler?
And this guy's like, hell yeah, I'm free. This lady went to jail for me.
So, looking online, I saw that someone put together the 9 deaths specifically associated with The Exorcist.
Oh, nice.
At least through their purview. Some of this will be repeated from the previous sections, but it gives a little bit more detail on them, so we're going to go over all 9. The first one, Jack McGowan, Burke Dennings. This actor died tragically before the film was released on January 30th, 1973, of complications from influenza, which he contracted while in London during the flu epidemic. Jack, who had a staggering 75 credits to his name as an actor, played the eccentric film director Burke Dennings. His character was killed brutally in the film after the possessed child Reagan, Linda Blair, threw him out of the window.
I don't know if I would classify that as killed brutally, being thrown out of a window.
Being thrown through glass is not a good way to go.
I mean, I guess in 73 that's pretty brutal, but we have movies now that just puts that to bed.
I don't know. I one of my things about driving that I get scared about, like if your seatbelt broke and you went through the windshield, like there's not, like that's a bad way to go. Like it cuts you up.
It cuts you. So you're more worried about the glass cutting you up than anything?
Yeah, that hurts, and then you go hit the ground. It's not a good way.
I mean, I'm not trying to advocate for flying out of your windshield by any means, but I'm just trying to understand that the glass part is what's making you more nervous.
Yeah.
It's not hurling through the air at like 50 miles an hour. It's going through the windshield and getting cuts.
Well, you know, they've actually redesigned windshields to like actually shatter. But like windows themselves, like if you hit them, like there's going to be jagged edges. And if you get thrown through that while like going really quickly and you hit a jagged edge, it could just disembowel you. And you just fall off like 2 floors. Like that's a brutal death.
You don't say. You don't say. I don't know why we're still stuck on this topic, but like glass cutting you is what makes you nervous. I'm learning more about you every day, Cleet.
All right, next one. Barton Heyman playing Dr. Klein. Barton died a few years after the film was released on May 15, 1996, due to heart failure at the age of 59. Although he played the small part of Dr. Klein, the part was crucial to explore the plot of whether it was a possession or a psychological phenomenon. Due to possessions being religiously based, they are not widely accepted as reality, which is why the directors brought Barton's character in to explore against the priests. All right, this one kind of bothered me, but Linda Blair, Reagan McNeil, the leading actress, played Reagan, the possessed child who was once a 12-year-old innocent, sweet, and innocent little girl who ends up killing her friends and family. She quickly became a child star after the film was released and skyrocketed to fame thanks to her creepy performance. Unfortunately, none of her roles thereafter ever did well, as when she played Reagan. So apparently what they're saying is her career died.
Oh. I was like, I didn't know she died after that, but...
Yeah, no, she's still alive.
So one of the deaths that we're crediting to The Exorcism is a career death.
Yeah.
Like, you'll never act in another film as good as this one.
They really wanted to get to 9.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch.
All right. Lee J. Cobb, Lieutenant William Kinderman. Lee also died a few years later after the film was released. On February 11th, 1976, the actor behind the character William Kinderman died of a heart attack at the age of 64. He played the assertive cop who tried to solve the murders of Burke Dennings, which believed was a homicide before discovering it was by a possessed child.
There's so many people that die from a heart attack, and I worry that's how I'm going to die.
Yeah, I hear that.
Like, I quite literally think that's how I'm going to die, is a heart attack.
Vasiliki Malaros, who played Father Karras's mother. The elderly star died before the film was released on February 9th, 1973. with her inquest stating her death was due to natural causes. Mercedes McCambridge, the voice of the demon, the creepy lady that was drinking eggs and drinking whiskey and smoking, died on March 2nd, 2004. Mercedes died of natural causes. She was the voice actor of the creepiest character to perhaps ever feature in a horror film, as she performed as the voice of the demon. Despite not showing her face in the film, many fans dubbed the voiceover the creepiest part, and it led to her cult status. After the film was released, Mercedes took Warner Bros. To court because she was uncredited for her role as the voice of the demon, and it ended up winning the case. So
really? They didn't even credit her for that?
Yeah.
It's like, here, we're going to ruin your voice.
She gave up her sobriety for that.
Right, we're going to ruin your voice box, turn you back into an alcoholic, and we're not going to give you credit for it.
This is like the one issue I have with this curse, though. It's like they're going at like 25 years, or like stating people in their 60s that died.
Yeah, like,
it's like, ugh.
They died in their natural causes. It's like, people die. Like, you can't blame the movie for all these deaths.
Yeah, everyone.
Like, all the stuff on set, sure. And the crazy, motorcycle on the beach, okay, maybe.
I heard that everyone that watched The Exorcist will die someday.
Oh, shit. I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie, Cleet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna die. Cleet, I'm gonna die.
I don't know you're fucking referencing, man.
I'm not referencing shit. I'm gonna die. I watched The Exorcist. I'm gonna die.
Yeah, you will.
You're gonna die.
I will.
Question is, who's gonna die first?
It's a race to live longer.
Oh, it's like, I'm not going first, bud.
Jason Miller, who played Father Karras, Jason tragically died at 62 years old of a heart attack on May 13, 2001, at his home in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He played the character Father Karras, who takes on the case of performing an exorcist on Reagan with Father Marin. Max von Sydow, Father Marin, this actor died recently on March 8th, 2020, at the age of 90. See, 90? Come on.
23 years later.
He played the character Father Marin, who was recruited to come and perform The Exorcist on Reagan after she became possessed. The last person was the janitor on the set, who will remain unnamed. So this will wrap up our Exorcist series. I did have a question for you, Britton.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the term calling of the void?
No.
So I heard about this when I was a kid. Someone was talking about how they knew somebody who would never drive, and they asked him, well, why don't you ever drive? And she would say, if she was ever driving, past, a...
Like the shoulder of a road that goes off, or a hill, or a...
Yeah. Okay. She was saying that whenever she'd drive by, a shoulder on the road, or something that had a steep decline, she would feel an urge to just swerve into it.
What the hell?
And I always thought that was the strangest thing. I heard it on a podcast I was listening to recently, that people have these weird things they call calling to the void. And it's they're not depressed or suicidal, but for whatever reason, if they're on a ledge of a cliff, they just have this instinct to want to jump.
So is it, in her case then, is it every time then that she drives by a shoulder with a steep, she has this urge to drive herself?
An overwhelming urge if she decided to stop driving. Now, people might have different varying degrees of that feeling to be part of the void or die. But I found it very interesting.
I can honestly say, at least in my cognitive memory, that I don't have any call to the void. I've never been in a situation it's I should do this thing that's going to cause me, injury or fatality. I'm going to die.
Yeah. It's definitely a weird but a very intriguing concept to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if we could get enough information on that to do an entire episode, because that would be... I don't know, it's sad to have this sudden urge to, I guess, in a sense, commit suicide. I mean, that's what it would be, I guess. Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. As always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.